Henry Cole had a serious dilemma. He was a very popular man. The prominent civil servant, inventor, and educator who traveled in the upper echelons of high society simply didn't have the time to be so well liked. His problems had continued to pile up at an alarming rate during the weeks before Christmas of 1863, as his felicitous salutations sat untouched by the busy man. He had no choice but to respond to each and every correspondence from his well-meaning friends. His position in the Victorian society demanded it, and he imagined a future version of himself shackled to his writing desk for an eternity as he scribbled away in response to every letter. But Sir Cole did not have that kind of time on his hands, as besides being a popular man about town, he was also the assistant keeper of the British postal system, the owner of an art gallery in London, was writing and publishing a series of children's books under his pseudonym Felix Summerlee, had designed a prize-winning teapot produced by Minton, among other profitable items, and is credited for designing the first postal stamp. The Postal Service had just instituted the penny post, now making it possible for almost anyone to use its services without having the receiver reject the previously expensive letter, which had required payment upon delivery, determined by how prolific a writer you had been. Now, one need only affix a small penny stamp to a missive and send it off happily without worry that one would be stricken from an acquaintance's list. At this point in Sir Cole's story, we have reached exhaustion for him, and we need to catch our breath for a moment. But not Sir Cole. As he stared at the mountain slowly growing on his desk, it occurred to him that what he needed was to simplify his correspondence significantly. And he knew just the way to do so. He'd call upon his talented friend John Callcut Horsley, who probably had less friends than he did, and commission him to illustrate a festive scene to be printed on a cardboard card about 5/8 by 3/4, to which Sir Cole could sign his name and address each card to the individual friend before sending them out by postal delivery. It was a brilliant plan. On December 17th, Sir Cole wrote in his diary, "This evening Horsley came and brought his design for Christmas cards." To say Sir Cole was pleased would have been an understatement. The illustration was exactly what Sir Cole had envisioned, a triptych with a family celebrating at its heart, flanked on either side by depictions of helping the less fortunate at Christmas time. Even his contemporary Charles Dickens would have approved. He promptly had 1,000 of the little cards printed up and sent out the first commercialized Christmas card post-haste to avoid all the unpleasantness of having to explain his lack of response to his overflowing friends list. He even made a few extra to sell in his art gallery for others who shared his misfortune of being too popular for their own good at Christmas time. His friends on the receiving end, in turn, thought him a genius. After all, Valentine's cards had been popular for a while now, and these little Christmas cards resembled them pretty closely, only with a holiday theme. Within a couple years, his friends had stolen his idea, and even his exact card, to send to their bountiful acquaintance list. How there are only 21 of these cards still left in existence, I can't imagine. Soon, the Victorians were busy creating Christmas cards to send to each other, to lighten their holiday load and allow themselves the luxury of expanding their friend lists, instead of rejoicing whenever they lost a friend. But the Victorians were an odd bunch. So many of the cards were illustrated with morbid or scary images of dead robins, murderous snowmen, Krampus, the demonic little delight that traveled around with St. Nicholas, kidnapping and beating children, and so on. Because nothing says Merry Christmas quite like a raging snowman or deceased birds. Thankfully, in 1875, Louis Prang, an American who had immigrated from Prussia, designed a beautiful card that had an artistically rendered flower on it with a greeting that read, "Merry Christmas." The Americans, glad to jump off the morbid holiday card bandwagon, immediately began buying and collecting these cards. Few of the cards of the time bore any resemblance to today's holiday themes, with most illustrations being of nature, flowers, and animals, and thankfully not Krampus and his wicked renderings. The British folks, also eager for the beautiful cards, joined in the collecting, with new cards of each season being reviewed like books and movies of today. By 1894, an influential British writer dedicated an entire issue of his magazine, The Studio, to an in-depth look at Christmas cards. In his esteemed opinion, he found them trite in their writing, but novel in their artwork. And the public didn't care a bit what he thought, as the trend continued to grow and be embraced by every level of society, and even people who hadn't the number of friends that made writing back a burden. And then in 1915, in Kansas City, a little postcard company, the brainchild of Joyce Hall, began printing holiday cards. 3 Hall brothers, Joyce, Rolly, and William, took the Christmas card branch of their company very seriously and thought Christmas cards needed a bit of an update. Folks, they thought, had a bit more to say on their cards than could easily fit on a postcard, but didn't really want to be obligated to write an entire letter, so the brothers designed a book form card. The book stood 6 inches high and 4 inches across and fit in its own snug little envelope. The public gasped in delight. For their next trick, they added a cheery holiday message, followed by commissioning artwork from famous artists such as Salvador Dali, Grandma Moses, and the venerable Norman Rockwell. People couldn't get enough of these Hallmark cards, and the mail service was now filled with Christmas cards throughout the month of December. In 1963, Jacqueline Kennedy even designed 2 cards for Hallmark, whose proceeds went to fund the Kennedy Center. By 1977, when the most popular Christmas card ever was printed, sending cards at Christmas time was an unquestionable holiday tradition, one my own grandmothers insisted could not be broken. Whether the breaking of the tradition of sending Christmas cards with an interesting bit of conversation in it would get us thrown on the naughty list was uncertain to my sister Sherry and I, but we didn't feel it worth the risk, painstakingly filling out our festive cards for our grandparents each year, enclosing a hand-drawn picture for good measure. Krampus wasn't going to catch us unawares. Hallmark continues to offer over 2,000 Christmas designs, produced in over 30 languages and distributed in over 100 different countries, alongside with their boxes, bags, wrapping paper, and collectible ornaments and figurines. Their most popular card, designed in 1977, which depicts 3 cherubic little angels, 2 of whom are praying, while the third with its huge blue eyes open and its halo askew peeks out at the audience, has never been out of print, selling over 34 million copies to date. But in the little house, the Pixies do not rely on Hallmark or any other box card to relay their Christmas tidings, but rather the budding little designers set pencils, paints, and pens to paper and whip up a bit of Christmas magic of their own to send to their list of friends and family in a tradition that would make their great-grandmothers proud, and I suspect Sir Cole as well. We hope you've enjoyed today's video, and that if you have, you will like, comment, and even share it with your own friends and family, as you help us continue to grow. Now go fill out a few holiday cards and send them to your hopefully smaller than Sir Henry Cole's list of acquaintances, and we'll see you tomorrow.